Hello everyone, welcome to my Persuasive presentation. As you can see, the paper I'm going to present today focuses on persuasive technology that aims to promote sustainable household recycling behavior. Before we dive in, I'll quickly introduce myself. This is me. My name is Christina Bremer, and I'm a PhD student in the School of Computing and Communications at Lancaster University in the UK. The research I'm most interested in is all situated at the intersection of technology and sustainability, as well as technology and social justice. So let's get started and establish why we should in fact be interested. Linked to the study, we'll specifically focus on household waste, so waste that people produce in their homes. In 2018, we as humans produced around 2 billion tons of household waste. And considering our growing population, increasing consumerism, urbanization, and the intensive use of packaged products, you might not be surprised to hear that this number is increasing. More specifically, it is expected to rise to 3.4 billion tons by 2050. And I'm sure you can imagine that if 3.4 billion tons of waste are not collected and processed, they will have a large negative impact on public health and contribute to environmental pollution and climate change. An effective strategy to avoid this large negative impact is to recycle the waste, meaning that the waste gets collected and reprocessed into new materials, products, or substances. For household waste to be effective, a well-functioning recycling system and the cooperation of citizens required. And in fact, the higher the citizens' degree of involvement, the better quality waste materials can be extracted. The current study was conducted in the context of the Swedish recycling system, which is a system that heavily relies on waste separation in households. This is due to the fact that the responsibility for handling waste is divided between municipalities, producers, businesses, and households. And Sweden is also interesting as the research context, as it has a stagnating household waste recycling rate. So between 2014 and 2018, Sweden consistently recycled and composted around 50% of its household waste. But considering the European Commission's recycling target of 65% by 2030, this clearly leaves room for improvement. Answering to this, the study I'm about to present you was designed to better understand how persuasive technology can help tackle suboptimal household recycling behavior, or in other words, how persuasive technology can encourage people to collect, prepare, and separate waste at home in accordance with their local recycling scheme. After consulting the literature, I decided that the focus of the study was going to be the following. Firstly, the study specifically targeted young adults aged 18 to 30. And this was based on a consensus in the literature that recycling behavior tends to improve with age. Secondly, the study adopted a user-centered approach in which the persuasive design was largely based on user input. A key reason for this approach was the study's emphasis on design that users would be motivated to try out and ideally consult again if they had any questions on the topic. Thirdly, the study focused on persuasive technology that doesn't rely on waste container augmentation. So using such augmentation has been the most prominent approach in the related literature. It, for example, includes cameras, scales, and screens that get attached to waste containers to monitor recycling performance and provide feedback. However, it is costly and difficult to deploy on a larger scale. So in comparison, augmentation-independent alternatives could be more easily applied in different settings and reach a large audience. Methodology-wise, the study adopted Fogg's 8-step design process. This is a design process that targets persuasive technology, so I'm sure that many of you are familiar with it. Covering the various steps, the study consisted of 2 main phases. The first phase covered the design, implementation and analysis of an online survey. It was carried out among Sweden-based young adults and distributed via social media. The survey was intended to provide insight into the young adults' recycling-related interests, problems and attitudes. It contained multiple choice and ranking items, as well as open-ended questions. Then in the second phase of the study, a persuasive household recycling mobile phone application was designed in an iterative manner. The initial design was based on the survey results from phase 1, as well as on findings in the literature, existing technology, and a set of design principles. The design was improved in 3 iterations, each involving a task analysis and a short semi-structured interview with 1 or 2 participants. Before showing you the design, I'll give you a brief summary of the survey results. If those pique your interest, then I encourage you to go and have a look at the paper. In this presentation, I can really just give you a glimpse of all what I discovered. So the survey results mirrored the suboptimal household recycling behavior of young adults that was outlined in the literature. And that was despite the fact that the participants were interested enough in recycling to fill out the online survey, obviously. As you can see, roughly 1/3 of the participants self-reported considerable knowledge gaps. This means that they were often unsure how to dispose of specific waste items. The participants also highlighted their recycling-related difficulties. Of those difficulties, the most common one were overflowing waste containers, which were experienced by 58% of the participants. The results then showed that more than 70% of the participants were interested in learning more about recycling. And the aspect that they were most interested in was the impact of recycling onto the environment. In the open-ended responses, the participants asked for guidance when deciding which waste item they should put into which container and how they should prepare the waste. They specifically require the support kind of at the time or in situations when they don't know what to do with the waste item. Then, related to persuasive technology, the participants were asked how interested they were in using an application that would help them improve their household recycling behavior. There, on a scale from 1 to 10, the average response was 5.8 and the median response 7. The median response was selected by 26% of participants. So following on from that, I asked the participants to rank 5 different kinds of persuasive household recycling applications based on how interested they were in using them. Here you can see the results with the weighted average scores. What can be seen is that the gaps between the scores are relatively small. The kind of application the participants were least interested in was a game, and the one they were most interested in was feedback-based. This is particularly interesting as a meta-review on psychological strategies to promote household recycling found feedback to be the least successful of all the considered strategies. Moving on to the results of the design work, and again, I can only scratch the surface here. So if you're interested, then let me refer you to my paper. Overall, the participants of the evaluation sessions had little difficulty completing the tasks of the task analysis. And during the interviews, the participants all started to critically reflect on their own household recycling behavior and on how the application could help them overcome any problems they had. The participants differed as to which function of the application they found most useful. 2 participants liked the search function for waste items, 1 the visualization of the recycling scheme, and 1 the waste container collection times. 3 of the 4 participants also suggested, independently of each other, that the application could be useful for people who recently changed their place of residence. I'll now walk you through the main screens of my final prototype. If you'd like to know how the prototype changed through the iterations, I have outlined the changes in a table in the paper. Skipping the sign-up process and setting screens, this is the home screen. You can see that its main features are a visualization of the user's local recycling scheme and below a search function for waste items. Users can type in the name of the waste item and the application will tell them which container they need to put it in. The home screen then links to a map screen, which, if the users don't have their own, shows the containers for their house or apartment and where they are located. The users can click on each of the containers and get direction and collection times. They can also indicate when a container is full and see how many other users have done so recently. The third screen lets the users communicate with the recycling providers, and this goes both ways. So the recycling providers can make an announcement, see here, and the users can ask questions and make suggestions. So here they type in their questions and below is a section with frequently asked questions. On the last screen, the users can access additional recycling related information. This, for example, includes the impact of recycling statistics, and advice on how to reduce waste. Together, the findings from the survey and design work led to 5 recommendations for the design of persuasive technology that is intended to improve the user's household recycling behavior. So the first one is to provide easy access to information about optimal household recycling behavior, and this confirms previous findings in the literature. Also, the easy access was highlighted as most of the information that the users require is already available but not sought out. Then the second recommendation is the employment of several motivational strategies. Both the survey and design work results showed that different users are motivated by different features and that there doesn't exist a one-size-fits-all strategy. The third recommendation is the recognition of recycling scheme differences. So basically, as recycling behavior can only be sustainable if it's in accordance with the user's local recycling schemes, persuasive technology needs to cater for these differences. Then there's the regard of users as equals. While designers and developers might consider sustainability a good cause, it's still crucial that the developed systems are unobtrusive and transparent. Also, several survey participants stated that they didn't want to use persuasive technology that was patronizing or would make them feel judged. Then the final recommendation is the use of a readily accessible technology channel, which means that the persuasive technology should be accessible in the situations in which it's needed. For example, this includes the preparation, separation, and disposal of household waste that might not take place in the same location. To conclude, the study led to design guidelines for persuasive household recycling applications. It also confirmed the relevance of household recycling research, both for the persuasive community and beyond. What should be noted is that some issues, like the overflowing waste containers, can be addressed by persuasive technology, like I showed you in the application, but must ultimately be solved by the recycling providers. And finally, I would like to call for further research that measures the impact of these research findings on people's recycling behavior, ideally long term. This would complement the current study, which, mainly focused on the target users' motivation, problems, and interests. So that was all I had. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to get in touch. My email address is on the slide. I'd love to hear from you.